Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Nadine Vauder, and I'm joined with Caitlin Glasgow, and we are both part of the customer success team here at SONAR. Today, we're going to be reviewing our newly released brokerage toolkit. So we're going to go through some of the new features and make sure that you guys have a good understanding of how to use some of these applications and features that we've recently added into our system. So the first thing I'm going to go over is our new landing page. This is the Truckload National Insights page. This is going to be the landing page when you log in. So it's the first page that you'll see, and it has a lot of good information on here. Along the top, you'll see that you can see all modes, or you can do it by van or reefer. Currently, we only have it broken out by van or reefer, but they are working on adding a flatbed option as well for the future. But currently, if you just leave it on all, you'll be able to see the overall market in each location. So along the top, we have these three cards that are kind of our main data sets that we like to track on a regular basis in order to get a good understanding of what's currently going on in the market. So you'll be able to track the current rejection percentage, the current volume in the country, and then what the fuel is like currently in the country. So if you were interested in seeing our demand over time, you can click on this hyperlink right here, and it's going to pop you over to a chart, and it's just going to show you what the volume data set is over time. So what this data set is, just quickly go through this one. These are going to track those electronic transactions happening between shippers and carriers, and we are tracking those transactions on a daily basis. There is just a one-day lag when looking at this data set, so you're able to see a very good overall health of the overall market. You can see currently it's relatively low as it's been continuing to go down since the beginning of the year. There is a lot less demand for capacity happening right now than there was, let's say, in about February. So this is just a great health measure to see how much freight is needed and how much demand for capacity there is in the marketplace. If I go back to the insights, click Truckload National Insights, you'll see that data set right here with that value, and then you'll be able to track how that value and number has changed over the last month as well as the last week. On this one, you'll be able to track capacity. So when you think about the way that freight is tendered out, obviously we have the option to accept or reject. And on this chart specifically, we are tracking those rejections. So this number on the side is a pure percentage. So about 5.48% of loads in the country right now are being rejected on the shipper side. So about 95% of freight is being accepted. You can see since about the beginning of the year, that number has kind of continued to dwindle as well, but is higher than it was, currently this time last year. So we are on an upward trend as it comes to rejections, but the lower the rejections, the more capacity or the less demand there is in the marketplace. So you can use this as a great measure to see how the spot markets may be changing. This is national, but of course you can look at this value on a market level as well. So if you're curious on the rejection percentage out of a specific market, you could look that up as well and see where it lands compared to the United States national value and see if that market is, looser or tighter than the overall environment. So I'm going to go back to the insights. You can also track some of those changes right here. Anytime you see a decrease in rejections, that means obviously more freight is being accepted. So there is not as much available freight on the spot market. Right here, we have our weekly top moving markets. The way that we have this one displayed is showing you by volume. So you can see right here, it's viewing it by volume. And what you're able to see is the markets that have had a large change, either positive or negative as far as volume. So how much demand or how much volume is being shipped out of those markets. A lot of them you can see are red, but there are some outliers where there has been an increase in volume. So this is an easy way for you to see in the country where there's been an increase or where there's been a large decrease. So Hutchinson, Kansas has had about a 25% increase over the last week as the amount of volume that's coming out of there, compared to all of the rest that have had a decline. Tifton, Georgia has had about a 50% increase in the last month. So that's also very good to notice. You can easily see where each market lands over the last week and over the last month, and those change percentages as well. We have some rate information on this box. You can see some national rate information. If you're curious how the spot rates have trended over the last 3 months, you can track that right here. So we just put the current date right here, and then each month in the past, we have put those values as well. So you can see that the rates have kind of continued to decline since about February. The spot market is declining as far as spot market rates. And then the contract rates are right here. These are van specific. You can see where that has landed in the last year, and then where it has landed or low side and the high side and where it's currently at. So in the last year, it got down to about 225. up to about 246, and we're currently at about 231, which is a little bit below average, about 5 cents below average. So again, you can see that the rates in the country are going down, and be able to track very easily the spot rates and the contract rates versus each other to see if they're trending together or in opposite directions. A couple other boxes I want to highlight down here. This map, this is one of my favorite features of this page specifically because we have 4 different options. It automatically will go to this day and track spot market conditions. And what this is really showing you is over the last 4 days, where spot rates have increased or where they have decreased. So any of them that are red are indicating that rates have decreased over the last 4 days. And any of them that are blue have increasing rates over the last 4 days. So currently, you can see most of the country is red, but there are some outliers where there are some rates increasing. So being able to easily see that on the map, get regionalized information. Obviously, California looks like that entire state is blue. So that's, a good indication that rates are increasing outbound of California. Texas has a couple outliers as well. So it's an easy way to just spot where rates are changing. You can also look at our rejections. So that first value I showed, or that second value, I guess, up here, the 5.48, that's the national value, but you can see all of those market values as well. So any of them that are darker blue just indicate that they have a higher percentage than the overall average. And then any of them that are whiter are going to be lower. So the higher the tender rejection, you can assume that out of those markets, the shippers are going to be a little bit more needy of your support. Their freight is being rejected. They could be more willing to get out a little bit higher on the spot market. But of course, that freight is being rejected. So keep that in mind. Why are the loads being rejected? Is it because there's no capacity? Could be a weather event. Who knows? But there is 2 sides to freight being rejected. You can also look at that by volume. So if you're curious on where there is a lot of volume shipping in the country, you can easily see that. The darker the blue, just the higher the value. So Atlanta, Dallas, Ontario, and then upper Northeast, there is higher volumes than you would see in the rest of the country. And then the very last one is just going to compare. It's a chart that will compare these 2 rates to each other. So you can easily see, if they're trending together or not. So you can kind of see that the contract rates have kind of remained relatively stable. That's the white line, while the spot rates have continued to go down since about, I guess, February, middle of February. Those spot rates have kind of continued to trend downward. And then the last chart over here is just the rejection percentage that we saw, 5.47, compared to the rate that you see right here, so 221. The way I was explaining it earlier is those rejections are a great leading indicator for the spot market. As the rejections increase, the rates most likely will start to increase. As rejections decrease, rates will most likely follow. And you can kind of see that over time on that chart. They're very highly correlated. Using the rejections in a market will help you be way proactive and know when rates are changing, when you can decrease your rates, or when you need to increase your rates, and be able to be proactive to those market shifts. Anything else you'd want to add to this, Caitlin?
I think that about covers it. I will say I have a lot of customers utilizing this for their first look every day to see if there's been any major shifts in the market. So this just gives you everything you want to see that's going on in the truckload market all in one place.
Exactly. So the next one I want to highlight is this key market insights. A couple different ways you can get to it. It's up here under the insights. So you can go directly right here. You can click on this page if you are already on this page, or you could actually click through this list or anywhere on the map in order to select a location. So what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to click on this Hutchinson, Kansas, since there's been an increase in their volume over the last week. And it's going to take me over now to this key market insights, and it's going to give me some more detailed information around that market. So remember, of course, the truckload national insights is going to be all, USA information, and then the market level information will be specific to your market. So you have a couple different ways you can search as well in here. If you wanted to add a specific location up here, you can just search it that way, or you can do it the way I did by clicking through the truckload national sites. It's going to give you a sentence that kind of gives you some information. So this market has moderate truck availability, and most outbound lanes have decreasing rates. So what you can see right here is the current value for their tender rejection, which is at 9.7, so 9.7. So it is higher than the national average. You can see down here on the chart. And it has trended above national average since, I'd say about October is when it really took off. So you can see that the rejections in Hutchinson, Kansas have remained above average for, majority of the last 6 months, but having that 9%, it is, having a little bit of an outlier. It is becoming a higher difference between the average and the market itself. So you can track that over time if you're curious if this market trends above or below average. So it's showing you that this market is moderately tight. Since it is above average, it's letting you know there's probably not a lot of capacity. There is about 4% more freight being rejected out of this market than the national average. So again, it's letting you know that this is a moderately tight market. And then it's showing you some changes of that over time right here. And then you can also see how this market has trended as far as volume and rejections. So we take this WRI data set, we take into account how the volume has increased or decreased, how the volume has changed and how the rejections have changed over the last week. And we just give you a value, 0.62. But we put some words next to it to let you know, what does that mean? So there has been some tightening. It's continuing to increase. It's moderately tight and there's some tightening. So that is letting you know that this market, again, is becoming more difficult to secure capacity. The volume has increased, as we just saw on the last page, you can see it right here, by about 25%. And it's increased in the last month too. So this market has just continued to go up. So if Hutchinson, Kansas was a market that you had freight out of on a regular basis, that would be something I'd be paying attention to. If it was not, it would be one I may solicit freight from for my shippers or customers in order to, get higher margins or have higher revenue per truck. This volume box over here is just going to indicate the current value. So remember, our volume values are always indexes. So that 43 number doesn't necessarily matter, but where has it landed in the last year? So again, you can see the 52-week low here and the high over here, and the current value is at about 43. So it's a little bit above average, and it is more of an outbound heavy market, just indicating that there's a lot of freight that ships out of Hutchinson, Kansas, and not a lot of freight that delivers to Hutchinson, Kansas. So that's going to give you an imbalance as far as capacity. It's ranked number 73 for outbound and ranked number 102 for inbound. So that's why it's pushing closer to that heavy outbound. Anything you'd want to add on this one, Caitlin?
Nope. Just that this is a great way to get some of that market specific data without having to build out custom pages like we used to.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, this is going to be all equipment types. If you are using our key market insights, just keep that in mind. We don't currently have it by van reef or a flatbed. That is to come as well, but just keep that in mind. This is a great resource to see the overall health of that market. All right, we have a couple of other applications that we want to go through with you guys today. So under applications, you should see coverage guide as well as key market guidance. We're going to go through both of those. We'll go through the coverage guide first, and I'll hand it off to you, Caitlin, if you want to give a little snippet about it.
Perfect. Yep, this is going to be our load board prioritization tool. So now that you've won all this additional business with the market insights, what do you need to prioritize so you can minimize your loss and maximize your margins? So you have a few different options for how you can upload it here. You can bulk upload all of your available loads for the day, week. You'll just download the template, upload that file back in. It's the same one as our Market Dashboard Plus if you have that as part of your subscription. So you can view it on a bulk upload, or you can add a single lane at a time by this add new loads options. So if you get a same day add, or if you have a truck fall off, you can add that back to your available loads without having to re-upload the whole file. So these first few columns here, the origin, destination, equipment type, that's all going to be information that you're uploading. Then we'll get into the nitty gritty. So you have the current track spot rate. Those are going to be our real-time rates from brokers that were paid to the carrier as of yesterday. So we'll give you that current average, the high, the low, and then that week over week change. Also our confidence score, which is, how much data density do we have on this on a score from 1 to 5. The closer to 5, the more confident you can fill in that rate. If you're a track contributor, you'll see the My Track Rate compute there if you've ran this lane at least 3 times in the last few weeks or few months. And then we go into the market data. This is really what's going to help you leverage this tool before you're making 10 calls a day to see what the capacity conditions are doing. So we'll give you that current rejection index. And then beside that, we have the condition. So the smaller print words there. That's going to be how the market is currently. And then how is that moving? So if you look at this one, Van Buren to Cincinnati is currently a tight market with minimal change. So if you're struggling out of this market currently, it's not showing a lot of movement. Maybe we should try to pre-book those shipments to save us some money there. Then we have the coverage guidance and that difficulty score. This is going to give you an easy score from 1 to 9 on how easy or difficult it is to secure capacity on this lane. And then we're going to give you that guidance. So give you a few words for how you should take action with that. You can filter these down by the condition or the difficulty score. I would recommend filtering those most difficult loads first to see what you need to cover first thing in the morning. Try to get a truck on that before 12 if you can, or pre-book, even better. But then also looking at those easier loads and see where you can sharpen your pencil. Am I leaving margin on the table? You know, are we overpaying on this lane time after time when we could potentially make more money? You can customize what you have in this view if you want to add some additional columns, or you can take away anything we have currently. But then also you can now download this out of the UI. That was a big request that we got when we released this tool, and we listened. So now you can download this out, send it out to the floor, and spread the wealth. I think that is everything for the coverage guide. Nadine, anything I forgot?
Yeah, a couple of things. You can also click directly through here to go to that key market insights page that I was just on. So if you were looking at this lane from Chicago to Minnesota, you could easily click on this Chicago and it'll pop you back over to the key market insights to give you some more details around that origin. You could do the same for the destination if you're curious how the destination is looking and if your customers or your carriers are complaining and not wanting to go to that location. You could get more details about kind of where you're trying to send them to figure out any negotiation strength or verbiage that you could use. You can also look at the rates by flat rate or rate per mile, whichever way that you prefer. And as you cover those loads, you could delete them off of your list so that you kind of have, nothing on the list by the end of the day. That would be what your goal would be. But a lot of our customers have utilized this on a daily basis, uploading their day of freight. If you have a TMS that you can export out of, our template is relatively easy to fill out. So just kind of copy paste your information, upload it in here, and then you could directly download it out or use the UI, whichever way you prefer. But a lot of our customers have used this every single day in order to help them, prioritize, figure out what we should do first, and look at the rest of the week again to figure out what they should do there and pre-book or, push down rates too. Sometimes we forget that the market is getting easier at the moment. The volume is going down, the rejections are going down. So there are lots of lanes and lots of markets in the country where you should be pushing your rates down that you just may not know. If you paid $100 or $1,000 last week, it's easy to cover it again for $1,000. But if we're telling you to push down rates, if it's becoming easier, if there's an abundance of capacity, you could book that for $900. That's an extra, $100 of margin. So easy way to kind of squeeze out any margins that are available.
Yep. Got to take what we can get in this market. That's for sure.
Yeah. Caitlin and I are both ex-brokers. So I would have loved to have this when I was a broker back in the day.
Agreed. It's my favorite new tool for sure.
Definitely.
Now, if we go to the sales side of it, what about let's get some additional business, or let's try to get some business from our shippers that we're already working with? That is where our key market guidance comes in. This is going to be our sales tool. So this is going to help you target those markets to solicit where you have the most leverage. So the map here is looking at that weighted rejection index again, which is combining the weekly change in rejections and the market size. And we're going to filter these by the markets that have the most tightening at the top all the way to the loosest markets. So think of this from a shipper's perspective. This is strong tightening if you were a shipper and they need help. Therefore, as a broker carrier, you have more leverage, more opportunities in these markets. So that's what we're looking at with that key market trend. And then we're giving you that guidance similar to the coverage guide, where you have leverage versus where not as much leverage, kind of giving you a little more guidance there. Then we'll break down that rejection index again and some spot rate direction. So you can see, okay, I have leverage out of this market and spot rates are increasing or decreasing, just to kind of know how competitive you need to be. Then we'll show you that market size. So if this is a very large market or if it's a smaller size, just to give you some more information before you start making phone calls. You can filter any of these columns. So if you wanted to look at, the loosest markets or you can see which ones have the most loosening, or you can look at spot rate direction and see which markets have severely increasing or decreasing spot rates. Now, we don't stop there. If you have found a market that you think you have a really good chance at, you want to dive a little bit deeper, you can then click on any market of your choice. And then we're going to get lane level with you. So it's then going to filter the destinations by the ones that you have the most potential margin based off that week over week buy rate change. So it's going to filter from that origin market that you selected, the destination that you should deliver to with the most potential margin. So you can get even more granular with those solicitation efforts. So directly to your right is that target sell rate. So we're taking that market buy rate and then putting that margin to give you your target sell rate. You can adjust this margin. It's going to default to 20% or the highest potential, but you can adjust to your parameters there. We'll tell you that week over week buy rate change, and then we're going to tell you that lane score. This is a score from 0 to 100 on the most difficult to the easiest markets to secure capacity from a market perspective. So you know how spot rates are moving, but you also know when you start making calls, is this going to be difficult to cover? Do I need to have a little more margin cushion? Or is this a super easy lane where I can go a little more competitive on that rate to win some business? And then the last two columns, we're giving you those inbound capacity indicators as well. So how is volume moving? And then what can I expect from a capacity perspective? And then you can click one more time. So then once you decide on that destination, it's going to show you the non-closest markets to Denver, Colorado. So you can see if there's any outliers that could affect your service delivering into Denver. Because even if Denver is a pretty neutral market, it looks like Albuquerque is a little bit difficult. So that could affect your capacity and in turn, your rate to the truck. Again, I think that is everything. Nadine, anything I'm missing or forgetting on this one?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I do love the, oopsies. You can also search up here at the top. So if your shipper sends you a direct lane, you could easily search it right here and figure out some more details, below without having to go anywhere else. So if you are on this page and you're on the phone, or they email you back and they're like, well, we don't have Louisville to Denver, but let's say we have Louisville to Seattle. Let's see what that looks like. You could change it. Sorry, the map moved, but you could change it, see again what's going on in that location, in that region, and figure out again how you should quote it. So it's showing you that you could make about 10% instead of that 20, what I think that's what Denver showed. So obviously you're not going to always have the option of what type of lanes or what type of destinations or origins you're going to have. So being able to search that pretty easily right here will save you guys some time as well.
Definitely. Makes you have a lot more informed conversations when you're talking to shippers without having to put them on hold and try to figure out a rate or call some carriers real quickly.
Exactly. So I'm going to quickly go through the market dashboard with everybody real quick. This is not a new feature, but it is definitely part of our broker toolkit. It will help you guys get informed decisions and make some pretty easy, rate decisions by having it, easily accessible. So I'm going to search a lane in here. I'll just go to my saved lanes and search one. And I just wanted to kind of show you guys the difference between our rates and some cheat sheet things that I have discovered after using Market Dashboard for a long time. So Market Dashboard is a single lane rate search where you can search van, reefer, and flatbed. You can do anything in your origin and destination as long as it's within the United States. So you can do zip codes or addresses or city states, whichever way you prefer. And then you do have the option to save lanes here. So if you run lanes on a regular basis, please click that save lane button, and it makes it just much easier to search through. But what you're going to get back first is the track spot rate and the contract rate. So you'll see right here, you can change your rates to a flat or rate per mile, whichever way you prefer to view your rates. And then you'll see the mileage band that we have up here. So from Greenville to Detroit, we're showing 650 miles. If that's different than your customer miles, I definitely recommend using per mile. That way you have the right, rate. But I'm going to go through the difference between our track and contract rates. So the track spot rates, the green color one that you're looking at up here, these are coming from broker customers. We have about 35 broker customers who contribute to us on a daily basis. It makes up a very large portion of the spot market. So we're able to see that carrier or that broker to carrier paid out rate as of yesterday. These track spot rates update every single day and are always all in. They include fuel. That's just the way we receive them. And so if you are using our track spot rates and wanted to back out fuel, then I recommend using your customer's fuel surcharge, figuring out what that would be and using it that way. But we're going to display the average, the low, and the high, very similar to what you saw in the coverage guide. And then we'll give you some information about how those rates have changed in the last month and then the last week. Over here is that same confidence score that you saw in coverage guide. So you're going to be able to see, of course, how confident we are in that rate. So 5 out of a 5, of course, means that we're very confident. There was not much expansion windows that we had to, expand out to. We didn't have to add a whole bunch of expansion mileage in order to get to a specific rule. Since these are coming from brokers, we want to make sure you're not getting just 1 or 2 brokers' information. So we have a 525 rule. So every single lane you guys search in here, there needs to be 5 or more contributors, and not one of them can account for more than 25% of the data. So just in order to meet that rule, we're showing you how far out we had to search. So about 30 miles at the origin destination. We looked back about 10 days and we're showing 5 loads with that confidence score of a 5. So not much dispersion between the average, low, and high there. The contract rates are a little bit different. They are coming from a freight payment processing company. So those are shipper to carrier rates. They are going to update every single Monday. We just change them on Mondays or update them on Mondays because they don't fluctuate as often. So you'll be able to track the contracted rates on a weekly basis here. We do include fuel when we are showing our contract rates in order for them to be apples to apples with the track spot rates. So our contract rates, we have added fuel in. It's between 50 to 60 cents average on each lane. If you wanted to back out your customer fuel, again, I recommend just using your customer's fuel surcharge and going at it that way. So I'd say about $1.95 would be the contract rate here if you backed out fuel. Again, we're going to give you a confidence score. This confidence score is going to be derived by, again, the expansion window and then any outliers that are coming in. So if you have, a bunch of rates very similar in the same band, and then we had a bunch of outliers, that's going to affect the confidence score as well. So if you see a 2 out of a 5, that just means that there is a lot of expansion that had to go into that and a lot of variability going into that rate as well. So you can see we had to expand out a little bit more for our contract rates. We do have a lot more volume and a longer look back days. So just wanted to kind of give you guys the difference between those 2 rates if you are looking at them. Another best practice I wanted to highlight for you guys, if you click this filter button, well, first, let me go down here. On the chart, you can see that the chart obviously will show you both rates over time. But I'm going to click this filter. And I'm just going to take off the track spot rates first. And you can see that the contract rate is not a flat line now. So you can easily see that fluctuation without having to, just see a flat line. You could also extend your time frame here. If you wanted to see a longer look back, we go back to 18 months. So feel free to extend your dates. And then you could do the same for the spot market. So if you wanted to see how the spot rate has changed, a lot more fluctuation. And then again, hovering over will give you that high, low, and average line in the middle. So you can kind of see, again, where the outliers may have been. We do have a margin calculator. If you guys like to calculate your margin in a specific way, feel free to change any of these fields. If you have a specific margin percentage, you can edit that there. And then if your miles are different, you can edit that there, click calculate, and it's going to give you the, oopsies, I'm sorry, let me add the contract rate back. It's going to give you both track and contract rates and what your margin would need to be in order to, meet that margin that you were trying to get to. And then right here on this map, if I zoom out, that is the same map I showed you on the very first page, that Truckload National Insights page. So it's just showing you how the spot rates have changed outbound of these locations. This is going to be van specific since I'm looking up a van lane, but if I did a reefer or a flatbed lane, it's going to be specific to those equipment types too. So you're going to get, accurate information for your equipment type. So Greenville's had a rate decrease, and so has Detroit. So both of these lanes have had a rate decrease in the last 4 days. So you would be setting a driver from a market where rates are going down to another market where rates are going down. So it just kind of gives you information when you are on the phone negotiating, or if you're pushing information down to your floor, you can easily see how rates are changing outbound of your specific lane. Anything else on here that you want to highlight, Caitlin?
The only thing that I can think of is overlaying some data sets in the chart at the bottom. That's one of my favorite things to do.
That is good. You're right. I'm going to go back to filter, and I'm going to take off the contract rates, and under enter symbol, that is a good, another good cheat sheet. This will function the same way as any of our charts that you're looking at inside of SONAR. So you can add any data set on here. So if you're curious about the rejections for Greenville, South Carolina, let me see what that market code is really quickly, GSP. So otri.gsp. So if I wanted to just add, sorry, actually, I'm going to put a V in front of that for van, and just going to click enter, and it's going to add that on there. Of course, it's going to flatten out my spot rate. So under this 3 dots right here, you'll see display options, and then just change your percentage, or I'm sorry, your y-axis style to dual. And that's going to give you 2 axes, whatever the proper way to say that is. And you'll be able to see if this rate or this lane rate changes, as well as the rejection percentage. So the blue line on here is the rejection specifically for vans out of Greenville, South Carolina. So 5%, very low tender rejections. And as you can see, that rate has kind of continued to trend in the same way at $1.75. I know that the number is over here, but the current value is over here. So you can see that they are trending very similarly. And, the rates were a little bit more elevated during this little peak of rejections. There was a higher rate elevation than there would have been, in the past, but it does look like it's pretty responsive to rejection changes. So anytime the rejections have gone down, the rates have also gone down. Anytime the rejections have gone up, the rates have also gone up. So again, you could do that for any market, any lane, and kind of see if the rejection percentage is a good leading indicator. And that way you can track that percentage easier without having to search that lane specifically. You could just watch, Greenville rejections on a regular basis to just, again, be proactive to those market changes. That is a good point. I forgot about that. Also, that My Track button up here at the top, I didn't highlight that, but it is the same as what you would see in Coverage Guide. If you have historicals and you are a track contributor and you have ran that lane 3 times in the last couple weeks or the last month, we will populate a preferred bid rate. It's not going to take into account just your history. It's going to take into account the overall track rate history as well. So if you pay better than the market, you'll be able to see a lower My Track rate. So right now, $1.82 versus $1.75. You could say that this market or this My Track rate, we don't purchase as good as the overall market, and we're purchasing about 8 cents higher. Doesn't sound like a lot, but over time could be a lot. So it, again, just gives you perspective of where you're paying versus the market and how much money you could be saving, or if you see a rate below that track spot rate. So let's just say it was like $1.65, then you would know you pay better, but that could be a risk if this market does change, and that would be something to also pay attention to. Paying lower than the market average is good over time, but can definitely bite you in the butt if you do it for too long, and those carriers figure it out. And so there's risk involved with those as well. So you can track that very easily right there. Anything else, Caitlin?
I think that about wraps it up.
All right. Well, if you are interested in being a track contributor or any of these other features, please reach out to your customer success manager, or you can just email cs@gosonar.com. We would all be happy to help with any questions that you may have. It was great chatting with everyone, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their day.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.